Welcome to More Than Renovating, a renovate and real estate podcast. Our founder, Belinda Smith, talks to industry experts to provide you with the knowledge and information you need to make renovating for love and profit your reality. Belinda will also chat to some of her Renovation Mastery members, who are just everyday people doing extraordinary things, following their passions in the renovation and property space. So, let's jump straight into the episode. Enjoy.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Belinda Smith from Renovate and Real Estate, and welcome to my podcast, Renovate and Real Estate's podcast, More Than Renovating, because we always understand and we know from experience that property investing and renovating takes a lot more than the actual project. It's more than the property. It is all of the bits and pieces that go into finding good deals and being able to get those good deals underway. And a lot of that is in our heads, which was why I have beautiful guest Kylie Walker with me today. Kylie is from Property Mindset Dynamics. Kylie has been a coach in the property development and investment world for a long time now. She's very, very experienced. And Kylie actually put this little phrase up on her LinkedIn page one day, and I just read it and contacted her immediately and said, I just need you on my podcast. I think we could really delve deeply into the meaning of the phrase that you popped up on your page. And I'm just going to read that phrase out. The phrase is, nobody talks about the middle, the part where excitement fades and progress stalls, where the work feels endless, the wins feel small, and the finish line isn't even in sight. The middle part is where most people quit, not because they couldn't do it, but because they thought it wasn't supposed to feel this way. But this is actually where the growth happens. Push through. One day this chapter will be part of the story you're most proud of. I read that and I really loved it, Kylie. I think that we're all on a journey, a property journey of investing, of renovating, and, you know, a lot of the battle is in our mind, and it's very easy to forget about the middle. So, Kylie, why did you post that, and what are your thoughts on that phrase?
Thank you, Belinda. I really appreciate you inviting me to talk about this topic. It's something that I'm really passionate about. It's the space, it's the area that no one really talks about. So I've been coaching people for a long time, and I have the privilege of hearing their inner world and hearing about the middle and when I'm supporting them in this space. And it's where you feel like things just aren't working for you and you want to give up. Like, there's so many times you want to give up on the journey, you know, in renovating, in investing, in developing, in the entrepreneurial space. And who do you turn to when you're waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning because you can't sleep, because your mind is racing about all the things that could go wrong and all the things that you haven't done, and cash flow challenges and all of the what ifs? It's like they all come to front of mind in the middle of the night or the early hours of the morning. And so I think it's important that we talk about this, because most people are struggling with this on their own, and they show up in their property groups or they speak to their friends and family and try to pretend that everything's okay, because they've got to be showing up confident, right, for everyone to believe in them. Yeah. But it can be a really hard, lonely journey at times when you're filled with fear, because you're in the middle where it feels like you're just not seeing results yet.
It's one of those times where I think we are very, very focused. We're not seeing results yet. We're working really hard. We've set big goals for ourselves. And I think that's part of it too, is that we set such big goals. And then when we reach goals, we keep moving the goalpost even further and further. If you're ambitious like I am, it's really hard sometimes to stop and just appreciate being in the middle. Like, I always feel like I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite done. So it's hard to appreciate the actual middle if you set big goals. It's really hard too when you get bogged down in work to appreciate what's actually going on around you in that moment, like just to enjoy what is.
Yeah. And so I'm always speaking to clients about celebrating their mini milestones.
Yeah.
So I have a client who was settling on a project yesterday, and they had to do a large capital raise. It's a rather large project. And I said to that person, so how are you going to celebrate? And he said, I didn't actually really think about it. And I said to him, you have gone through so much work to get to this point, you know, getting the property under contract, and then having to do all the due diligence and then raise capital, because it's, as I said, it's a large deal. And then now you're settling on the property. You've achieved such a massive milestone. how are you just going to acknowledge this? Because there's a whole lot more work that needs to happen before he gets to the end of this completed project. And so often people say to me, they'll celebrate their successes or their wins when they reach that end goal. But how do you keep yourself going when, for him, like, the end goal is probably 2 years away? And there's a whole lot of ups and downs and everything in between. So he's embarking in the middle now, like the middle between getting that property under contract, getting the development finished. So settling is just one little marker, one little point of time in this whole big middle that he's got to work through and overcome all of the obstacles along the way. So if you're not celebrating and acknowledging these mini milestones, when you're in the thick of the middle, it's like you look at it and go, oh my gosh, is this even worth it? Like, it's just all so hard. What was I thinking? You know, your mental wellness can start to deteriorate because you just get stuck in your head, and it just feels like getting to the end feels so far away. So you have to have these little milestone celebrations, so that when you look back, you can go, oh, wasn't it great when we celebrated settlement? And wasn't it great when we celebrated getting the DA? Or wasn't it great when we celebrated all these, just whatever those little milestones are that are memorable, so that you're enjoying the journey, not just waiting to the very end to enjoy the process.
Is it common for people to lose momentum because they're stuck in the middle, or they at least feel stuck in that?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I think that people get motivated and excited when they start. So whether they're starting in an education program, they're excited because they're committing to achieving their goals. You've got an education program and people start because they're so committed to achieving their goal. People get into a deal, they're so excited because I'm going to do this reno flip, or, the renovation to live, and whatever the outcome of the project is. And so excitement and motivation gets you started, but what keeps you going to the end?
Yeah.
Because as humans, motivation and excitement wears off. And when you start dealing with challenge after challenge, it's hard to feel quite so motivated when you're just problem solving all the time. So that's when, you go.
Yeah, what are small actions that people can take if they start to feel like they're losing their motivation or their mojo? What are the little things they can lean on?
Okay. So I think it's important to look at life and look at yourself from a few different angles.
Yeah.
So we need to be looking at your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, your physical well-being, and then also what needs to be done. Because doing projects and being in this space, it impacts all areas of our lives. So I would suggest that people do a brain dump, like just get everything out of their head that's concerning them and just get it onto paper so it's not rolling around in your head. Do you need to start exercising? So often when people start to get stressed, they stop doing the things that make them feel good, and they stop taking care of themselves because they get so caught up in their head, they just get a little bit frozen or very frozen, and stop doing the things that they need to do to feel good and to have those happy hormones flooding our body that are natural within us when we move our body and when we're taking care of our well-being. So making sure you're getting out and exercising, as much as we hear this a lot, it's so important to be taking care of our physical body. There's also acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling.
Yeah,
so I'm really big on this. I talk to particularly a lot of men, but a lot of people who are very driven, they don't really focus on their emotions. They just want to get stuff done. But I talk to them about, tuning in to the emotion that you're feeling and actually what is it? It's there because it has a message for you. And so I could kind of go a bit woo-woo here. I won't go too deep in it.
You can go deep, Kylie.
But your emotions are messengers. Like, they're showing up because they want to keep you safe. So if you've got all this fear showing up inside of you, it's like, acknowledge what that feeling is. It's like, oh gosh, it's fear. And then asking fear, what is your purpose for being here? And why am I feeling afraid right now? And when you ask yourself, why am I feeling afraid? That's when you'll get all the limiting beliefs. I'm worried I won't get finance. I'm worried I'm not going to make a profit. I'm worried, like, insert all the things that you're worried about, and there'll be a list of the limiting beliefs that you have rolling around in your head that is creating this feeling of fear. So when you write them down, you can understand why you're feeling so fearful. I'll use fear as an emotion because that's what most people are feeling when they're in the middle. And then when you write them down, then actually look at the things you've written down, and look at how you can actually address each of those points or those beliefs or those items to see what you can do to counteract the fear with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from my experience working with a lot of students, particularly with renovations, there's two places where fear shows up. One is the middle, because they're in the middle of it and they think, I've got a long way to go before this project is on the market and it's finished and you know, it's all styled and it looks pretty and we've actually got through all the hard stuff. But the other place is when they're about to buy. You know, that fear that some people just can't seem to really push through that fear when they're about to buy. And that's the one that people talk about the most. They do talk about the fear about making their purchase and doing all their numbers and buying the right property. That's the fear you hear about the most. You don't hear as much about that middle part.
I mean, hardly anyone talks about it. I'm a big advocate, like I said at the start of this podcast, about talking about this space because, as I said, I have the privilege of seeing and hearing people's inner world. And I would love for people to take away from this podcast the message that you're not alone in the struggle in the middle. Everyone goes through it. And they say that it's not the achieving of the goal that matters, it's who you become along the way. So it's the journey, not just the destination. And on the journey, we have to dig deep so many times and find out what we're truly made of. You know, how resilient we are, how we can overcome obstacles, how we deal with setbacks. Like there are so many things that we need to deal with when we're choosing to achieve goals. Like if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And that's why a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So who do you turn to? Yeah, you go.
No, who do you turn to? That was going to be my next question. Who do you turn to lift you out of that middle if you're feeling poorly in those moments?
So I think it's important to take some time to go inward, to really connect with yourself, to see what's going on and to understand how you're feeling and what's happening within you. And some strategies with that can be journaling or just writing out what's in your head just to try to get it out of your head so it's not all rolling around in there. Connect with your mentor if they will understand the fears that you're going through if you are, you know, working with a mentor. Speaking with a coach if you're working with a coach, because that's what we're here for as coaches. But also, really importantly, speak to like-minded people. So not the people that are going to feed your fears. So if you've got family members around you that aren't doing projects, that aren't doing renovations, that aren't in this space that you're in, they are the worst people to go to for comfort and support because they will feed your fears. They will say, oh gosh, I don't know why you're doing this to yourself. Oh, be careful. Oh gosh, it's risky. And oh, have you heard about interest rates? Oh, have you heard about the market? And they'll just feed all the fears and that will make it worse for you. So it's super important that you're really discerning about who you speak to and who you share your concerns with. So you want to share your concerns with people that have walked the path that you're on, the people that are walking the path that you're on, not the people that want to walk the path, the people that have actually been through what you've been through, and they can guide you and support you.
Yeah, and people who are just the same. I see so many, well, we're all presented with images online of the beautiful befores and afters or the property developments that were super successful, the big braggy guys, braggy guys draped over the bonnets of their cars, which, you know, that just conjures up an immediate picture in my mind, which is not my thing at all. But that kind of weighs heavily on us while we're in the middle of something that all of a sudden is a little bit difficult. And we start to think, well, how come they make it look so easy? How come they say that they started with no money and all of a sudden they're making $1 million per property deal? I think hanging with people and being with people who are just like you and you're part of the journey in a very ordinary way and not an exaggerated way is really key too. Because it's easy when you look around you and you see everyday people and they're doing all right, then you lean into that. Go, okay, if Sue and Karen and Joss and Paul and John are all just going okay, then chances are I'll be able to go okay if I just stick to what I need to be doing right here in this moment.
And something that's really important to do is to lean into those types of people that are doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And to ask them questions. So
yes,
part of, coach training, NLP training that I've done, neuro-linguistic programming, we learn about modeling. So we're modeling people who have achieved the success that you want to achieve. So when you're going to people and you're wanting to speak with them or have comfort or share your concerns with them and they've walked the path beside you or ahead of you, you can ask them, how did you get through this situation? What did you have to think? What did you have to believe? What did you have to tell yourself? So that you can then start to take on the beliefs that they had to get them through the difficult phase.
Yeah.
So if they were thinking, oh my gosh, this is terrible, it's never going to work or anything like that, they would not get to the end. They probably would give up and just sell the project if, you know, if they're doing a renovation unfinished. So you want to be adopting the beliefs and the behaviors that successful people have, so you can start to embed them in your own mind. So it's like, I just have to keep going. I know that if I just get through today, just focus on one day at a time, take the actions that I know I need to take, reach out to my community, lean into the data, lean into the research that I've done. The numbers are doing the talking. I know this deal's going to stack up because I did my research well. I just have to keep going and taking the actions that I need to take.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you what in your mind is grit and resilience, and the type of grit and resilience that it takes to get through. But you kind of just answered that. I see a lot of people, they have the desire, they'll express their desire so clearly. I want to retire when I'm 65. I don't want to be working anymore, or I want my current situation to change. There'll be a lot of desire, but it must be followed by that grit and resilience. Explain a character who actually gets through a property deal or a renovation. Just explain the character to me, Kylie. Is there a commonality? Is there a
Well,
type?
what I want to say first, yes,
Yeah.
there is a type. The people that are willing to do the work.
Yeah. Good.
So
Yeah.
know about amount of willing,
Desire.
wishing,
Wishing.
wanting, desire.
Yeah.
I just added,
Yeah.
combined a couple of words. No amount of wanting, wishing, hoping, praying will get you the result. Like, you actually need to be willing to lean in and do the work. So just because you've secured the property doesn't mean you're going to have a successful renovation. You have to lean in and do all of the work that it takes.
Yep.
Just because you want to secure a renovation property, if you're finding that you can't find a deal, then you have to actually dig deep and do the research. Like, you have to spend the time doing the work that it takes in order to get the outcome. It's not just say, I really want this outcome, and then keep focusing on how great it's going to be when you get there. You actually have to be willing to lean in and do the actual work. So the people that are getting the best results are those people who know that they have to just dig in and do the boring stuff that they don't really want to have to do. You know, I'll use renovation as an example. They want to do a reno flip. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get into a renovation. I'm going to make a minimum of whatever profit. And they visualize achieving that outcome. But in order to achieve that outcome, they have to be great at research and data analysis and calling agents and negotiating if they're negotiating themselves. There's all of these elements that you have to do in order to get to that end result. And a lot of people aren't thinking about all the little bits and pieces that are required to get there. And they're not willing to do the work. They're not willing to be uncomfortable to take the actions that you have to take.
Yeah.
So to be successful, you have to dig in and do the things that are uncomfortable, that you don't particularly like, but you know it's a necessary step to get the end result.
I'm a real fond believer of being able to push through when you don't feel like doing something, or if you're feeling a little bit tired. I just think that we've always got another level. We can always put our foot on the accelerator and dig deep when we really need to, and that we don't need to do that always and forever. But there are moments where we have to dig in. And I see my successful renovators, they're either doing the work themselves or they're organizing other people to do it, which also takes some resilience and grit. That's on the phone, and it's getting quotes, and it's, you know, it's trying to work out whether they're good tradies or not good tradies. All of those things come up for people. But in the end, it's just being able to push through and do those things at nighttime after you've worked your full day at work, or doing those things on the weekend when you'd much rather be at the beach. I think they're the differences, you know, and that's where people lose it in that middle. They forget about, you know, looking at that journey as, yes, I'm working hard now, but there's a certain, we get dopamine and endorphins, whatever it's called, from pushing through those moments and working hard and seeing results and leaning on the way that that feels and enjoying that part of the journey, rather than thinking, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work, full stop, I'd rather be doing something else. If we think like that all the time, we're going to take all the enjoyment out of seeing a project right through from the start to the finish, and the joy of seeing that project sold, and the joy of seeing another family really enjoy and move into a home that you've been able to create for them, and they can, you know, create their lives in that property that you've produced or built or whatever. So it's all part of the journey. And it's, you know, the way we view things, I think, is a big part of how we feel about that middle, where we're just not even making progress. I'll give you an example. I had a call from a lady called Karen. It was her first renovation, and she had just done all of the demos. She'd ripped out the kitchen, she'd pulled out half walls. I looked at where she was in her project and knew she had a long way to go. And she rang me. She was sitting in the middle of the floor the floors were about to be sanded back. And she said, Belinda, I've never felt more fulfilled or happy in my life than I do right now. And I thought, well, there you go. She wanted to do a reno. She was right in the middle. She had a lot of work ahead of her. And her viewpoint was to look at the positives and the way she was feeling and the fact that she was making progress and doing something she hadn't tackled before. She could have looked at that moment and thought, oh my goodness, this is terrible, and looked at the whole rest of the renovation like it was a big mountain to climb, but she chose not to.
Mm-hmm. Yep, excellent, great perspective. I think something that can support people when they are feeling disillusioned or they're stuck is to really map out the timeline of your project and then have your daily tasks down in Asana. I know I've gone off on a bit of a different tangent to what you were just explaining just then, but I was thinking about some practical ways that can keep people on track when they're not feeling fulfilled, like the lady that you just mentioned, where she's feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so on path right now. It's so amazing. It's very likely that at some point she'll be going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Because as we know, that's a natural part of the whole renovation journey. We have those moments of feeling like I'm so on path and on purpose right now, and then we just have the ebbs and flows. And I think to keep yourself going and to keep the drive going when you don't feel like it is to have mapped out your schedule and have your daily tasks mapped out. You know, I'm using a program called Asana. It's free, and you put in there the tasks that need to be done on a daily basis. And then even when I don't feel like doing things that I want to do, right? I'm a coach, and I feel the same way that everyone else feels when we've got difficult things that we need to do, or we're feeling in a little bit of a slump.
Yeah.
But when you have items on your list that you know that you need to get done to stay on track with your time, then you just go to the list, you remove the emotion and go, what do I need to do today? And you do that action, you tick it off and you move on. And so the more structure and systems you can set up for yourself, the more you can manage the feelings that you feel in the middle. So James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, talks about we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So when we're feeling really flat and when we've lost our mojo, when we're feeling disillusioned and going, I don't even know how I can keep going right now, I just don't even know if it's worth it. Well, this is where you do what you mentioned before. You dig a little bit deeper, you look at your list, you just do one more task, make one more phone call, do one more action, and then just keep going through until you can ride yourself out of the storm.
Do you think people learn a lot, and what do they learn when things don't go smoothly?
Gosh, I think you learn so much about everything.
Yeah.
About who your support people are, about whether you were really prepared enough, like whether you'd done enough research, like whether you were just operating on, you know, she'll be right, hope and pray kind of approach. Like it'll show you if you've actually done the work that you need to do to get the result that you want.
Yeah.
It can show you just how resilient and how amazing you are. Often you don't see that until you're a bit further ahead and you're looking back and go, far out, I made it. Wasn't that awesome? You can also find how many people are out there that actually want to help you if you ask for help. So a lot of people will just retreat and go inward and shut down when they're going through a difficult time. But if you reach out to your like-minded people, you'd be surprised at how many people who are on a similar path will want to lean in and help you and help just lift you up a bit to keep you going.
In those moments of stress and overwhelm, the natural go-to, I even visualize it sometimes, it's just like going to bed, pulling the doona up over my head and just wishing everything would stop for a little while. But the truth is we can't control what's going on around us. If we're in the middle of a project, we're in the middle. And the only thing we can do, I think, is just reach out to the right people and make sure we're supported and keep moving ahead and learn from the growth and the experiences.
And sometimes you actually do just need to take a couple of hours out or a day off, or just take some time just to pull back. Like if you don't have urgent things, so if you've got contractors waiting, for you to return their call, if you're at a critical time, you don't have the privilege, for want of a better word, luxury of being able to just pull your head, stay in bed and pull your head under the covers. But if you've been able to follow your daily tasks and your list, and you've ticked off the urgent things for the day, sometimes you can say, I just need a mental health break. And as long as everything else is moving, you can just take a bit of time to regroup. I'm not trying to contradict what you said before.
No.
So
I'm with you. Because the truth is, I might feel like pulling the doona over my head. That's what I visualize. What I actually do that makes me feel better is I live at Cronulla. Everybody knows that. I go to the beach, straight to the beach. It's 3 minutes away. As I get my feet in the sand, I sit on the edge of the ocean. I look at kids playing in the sand and just take the joy in that moment. And that's just enough. That will change anything that's going on in my headspace, in my life, or in any renovation project or in business. That's where I head, go to the beach. So I think if we've all got something that we can lean on like that, that can really serve us, I believe.
And often if we just take that time out, it's usually only a short amount of time than what we think we need. It's like, oh my gosh, true. I just need this all to go away. I just want to run away for a week and not have to deal with anyone or anything. But often it could just be an hour walking on the beach, or a couple of hours of doing something where you've switched off completely from all of the stuff that's going on in the project, or in with what you've got going on. And then it's like a reset, and you reset yourself much faster. So often it doesn't take as long as you think.
What kind of transformations have you witnessed in people that you've worked with who've struggled to either get started in a project or struggled through a project and they've come through it okay?
Oh, I've got many examples. One was a client I've been working with for about the last 6 months. When we started working together, they were really stressed, waking up at 2 a.m. with a million things rolling through their heads, concerned about the outcome, whether they would get the approvals that they needed. They were drinking too much because they were trying to numb the stress that they were feeling. It was starting to show up with their relationship with their kids. Their marriage was starting to feel strained. And, things are just really starting to get really messy. That person didn't want to get out of bed every day. They started to be, behind on everything. They just lost their mojo. So when we started working together, I really focused on what are the important things that we need to look at right now. And it was, how is that person showing up within themselves? And the stress had just completely taken away all of their personal power. And they were kind of at effect to all the thoughts rolling around in their head. There was just like all this stuff. And so for that person, it was talking through all of the issues. And then one go-to line, and you'd know this line, is, what is the data?
Show me the data.
Show me the data. So when we were going through the list of the things that were keeping them awake at night and were stressing them out at 2 a.m., and so I said, okay, let's go through this. And we wrote them down, and it's like, okay, so worried about neighbor objections. Okay, well, what can we do about that? And we addressed each of those things. And then as that person started to notice that a lot of the stuff they were already taking action on, but they'd gone into what if mode. And so they were just caught up in that space with their thinking. And so our focus was on, who do they need to be and what do they need to change within themselves so they can manage the stress better. And for that person, it was, I need to exercise every day, because when I don't, it affects my mental health. Cutting back on drinking, starting to really prioritize their time. So, in the morning it was kid time, then it was get them to school, then it's full on in business, fully focused on, their project and stuff that they were doing. And then when it's family time in the afternoon and the evening, switching off from business stuff, like you have to put your phone down and be present with them. So you're connecting with them. Cutting back on the alcohol that's making you feel like you can cope better, getting to bed earlier. And the more that person started doing that, they just started to recenter themselves and reset and access their personal power again. And now they're making excellent decisions. They're getting up at 4:30 in the morning every morning to train and to exercise. I'm not saying everyone needs to do that, but this is how it works for this person. But they really focused, when you really focus on who do I need to be and what do I need to change within myself so that I can get back to having clear thinking, that I can manage the fears that are coming up, and that I can get myself more disciplined and taking consistent action, And when you do that, you start to feel better about yourself. So I've
So
got a
true.
number of examples of people that have been on a similar journey. Like that one was a little bit more extreme, but they're doing more extreme projects, and there's a lot riding on them. But it all starts with you and how you're showing up and what you need to change within yourself, because everything that you achieve externally comes from internal. Like you have to make the calls, you have to take the actions that get the things underway. So it all starts and stops with you.
I have loved seeing the progress that people make in the property space, property development, new builds, as well as renovation. The change in people, like their own personalities, the way they turn up, show up, talk about what they're doing. You can feel it when they come into a room. You can see it in their faces. It's just phenomenal when people really get it together and they reach those milestones and they have some kind of success and they actually breathe it in a little bit and celebrate their wins and allow themselves to be happy with where they're at. It's just transformative. It's amazing. And it's also I find it frustrating and disappointing and a little bit sad sometimes when people are so stuck in any kind of fear and they can't make a start. And then today we're talking about the middle, what it's like to fight your way out of a paper bag when you're in the middle, what it's like to really push through. Thank you, Kylie.
So it really is. Oh, so I was just going to add, it really is a question you need to ask yourself: who do I need to be in order to get the results that I want? So I need to be braver. I need to have more courage. I need to be more willing to lean in. I need to be more willing to be uncomfortable. I need to take a good hard look in the mirror and look at what I need to be doing differently and what I can change so that I can get the results that I want, because that's ultimately, the results don't come to you. You have to create them.
Yeah, totally. Brilliant. Thank you, Kylie. I know that anybody listening to this podcast episode will now see the value in working with someone like Kylie, someone like Kylie, a coach, particularly Kylie. Look, it takes a lot of experience and you to really work out exactly how people think, react, and behave over a long period of time when it comes to the difficulties and all the nuances involved in property investing. There's money involved. People don't want to lose money. They want to go ahead, not backwards, and all that kind of stuff. It's very important that people do well. And I know, Kylie, you've supported people so well while they move through all the difficulties, including the missing middle that we just focused on today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And just to add to that, one of my most favorite things is when I'm working with clients and I see how far they've come. So we focus a lot on the middle, and then when they've reached the end of a project or reach the end of a difficult patch, then just seeing who they've become and how well they're handling these challenges and their personal growth. As a coach, to me, that's the most rewarding thing. And as we know, we're always going to be wanting to challenge ourselves. If we're in this space where we're entrepreneurial, we're driven, we want to achieve these big goals, we're always going to be having different middles along the way. We're going to be having beginnings, middles, endings, or completions. And it's just this cycle that just keeps rolling on. And so getting to that end and seeing the transformation that people have, just like you mentioned before, when you see your students come into the room, for me, it's like it makes me feel so fulfilled. And that the journey that I've been on, so you've been on your own personal journey, you have your middles. I have my middles.
I've got a few middles down to Cronulla Beach.
And I go walking in the bushland and look for koalas.
Yeah, you got the hills.
And yes. And so that's so where people can be focused on, they're wanting to complete projects, and that gives them the sense of fulfillment, because yes, I've just done that renovation, I've just sold and I've made this profit. For me, it's, oh my gosh, look at the transformation these clients have made and look at what they're achieving now. And just to see their faces glow and just see them having, standing up tall and having a spring in their step. This is why we do what we do. You mentor and coach people. I coach people as well. And it's just so fulfilling to see the results of people willing to lean in and do the work and be supported, and then having the right support to help them get there.
Absolutely. And it is the ones who are prepared to do those personal development, a series of exercises, work on themselves and be really honest with where they're at and what they need to do to get better. And that sounds really awful. It's not like people aren't good enough, but you know what I mean? To make those personal improvements, the ones who really pull it out of the bag are the ones that you see the transformation, and it's fast too. It's incredible.
And it's interesting. I've got a client that I've been working with for a long time, and he's ended up going on quite the personal journey.
Yeah.
So when we get started in property, it's generally because we want to make more money. Well, it is. We want to make more money, and we want to build a portfolio, and we want to secure our financial future. And it's all very logical, practical reasons why we do it. There's risk involved, and we get educated, or we learn, through the school of hard knocks, just getting out there and doing it at times.
Yes.
But we learn, it's all logical, practical reasons why we get into it. But it becomes a personal journey.
Yeah, you bet.
And so the client that I'm referring to, he's someone who was a tradie on a job site since he was 14. Now he's, mid 40s, and he's been doing numerous projects. And he says, I never believed it. I never knew that it would be such a personal journey that I would end up being on.
Yes.
And he's like, you're dealing with the challenges, you're dealing with the obstacles, and all of a sudden something happens, and it goes from being just about the project and about the money that you're going to make and the goals that you have, and it becomes this personal transformation. And he's always talking about he cannot believe the kind of person he is now, because he was pretty much forced into personal growth because of the challenges he went through in the middle.
Yeah.
And he's got so much into mindset work, visualization. He creates vision boards and manifestation boards, and he laughs at himself saying, if you had told me 2 years ago, I'd be doing this.
Yeah.
And one of the most fulfilling things for me is that we had a session about 2 weeks ago, and everything he put on his list in January, he has achieved.
Oh,
he said, I've got to create a new list. I don't even know what to put on it. And I'm like, that is such a high quality problem.
Yeah, when you've completed a vision board, and then all of a sudden you look at it, you drag it out from the corner of the room because it doesn't look pretty on the wall. So have it in the corner. And I looked at one of mine. This is quite a few years ago, and I thought I need to do another one. I could tick all of those things off that list. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
So property ends up, if you're committed to it for the long haul and you stay the distance and you keep showing up and you don't give up because you've had a setback or you've had one deal that hasn't turned out the way you want. If you're committed to achieving wealth in property, you have to keep going regardless of the setbacks. And sometimes we have losses. We always want to have profits, but we can't control all elements at all times.
Great.
So it's being able to get back up and reset yourself, do the work that you need to do, and keep going. And property is, becomes personal growth. And when you add them together, that's when you really get fulfillment. Yeah, that's who you become along the way.
And significance, all of that.
And then you get to help other people.
Oh, I agree.
There's always someone who's ahead of you. There'll always be someone who's a little bit behind you or further behind you. Then as you start to achieve that success, you can start to support other people and be a guiding light for them. And so I think that's super fulfilling.
Oh, so nice. Thank you, Kylie, for joining us. I hope that makes everybody feel so much better about where they're at in their property journey or even in their personal journey. Reach out to ladies like Kylie or myself. Kylie, you can catch Kylie at kylie@propertymindsetdynamics.com.au. That's her email. Website is propertymindsetdynamics.com.au. Kylie is an amazing lady. I've known Kylie now for many years, since about 2017, I think. We've worked together in quite a few different ways. And you're I was going to say you're my man, but that doesn't make any sense at all. You're the guy, Kylie. You're the one. You're the coach. Yeah, brilliant.
Well, I've loved knowing you, and I'm really grateful, and thank you for the opportunity to be on this podcast today.
I know we've watched each other grow, right? Haven't we? Through our own businesses and our property investments. It's been cool.
And when you find great people, we stick together.
Yay! All right. I mean, yes to that. Thank you so much, Kylie.
Okay. Thank you, Belinda. Bye for now.
Bye.